the research is very, very underrated in India, right? So nobody in undergrad is taking research seriously. Nobody is talking about it. And this is something which is getting admits to the top universities. So people who have a research profile, people who have written research papers have very, very good chances of getting into a top university. So universities like MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Princeton. So why are these so difficult to get into for graduate studies, right? So it is because the people who get into them have built a strong research profile in their portfolio, in their application. So today I'm going to tell you how to start building a research profile, and how to stand yourself apart from the rest of the competition. So with this aim, these three co-founders came back to India. As you can see, they are a award-winning team of scientists, researchers, and educators, and they themselves had applied for graduate studies at their time, and they discovered some of the facts that I'm going to tell you about today. And Videsh was founded with the same intention of people helping people like yourselves to get into your dream universities. So this is something about Videsh. Now, for today's agenda, we will look into what is a research profile, some of the research profile basics, identifying the topic of your research profile, and then in detail about how to write your research paper. So the paper outline. The paper outline consists of 12 parts. Okay, I'm going to take you in detail of how each part is differentiated from the another, and then some common do's and don'ts when you're writing your research paper. Okay, and then at the end, something a little bit about submission. So submitting to correct journals, and then the long-term mentorship program offered by Videsh. Okay, so let's get started. Let's dive into the topic of today's webinar. What is a research profile? So as you can see in my slide, a research profile consists of 5 different parts. So first part is the research project. So in our undergrad studies, every one of us has a project, right? Everybody has done a project as a part of their school undergrad curriculum, right? So these projects don't have a very high value when you're applying for your graduate studies. So since everybody has them, they are considered to be of very, very low value, right? The next part is the international or the college internships. So these internships also, I would say, rank at low to medium value when you're applying, because necessarily they consist of 2 to 3 months, and you're not really doing any groundbreaking research during your internship. You're just helping the team as an intern, right? It is basically something that you're adding to the team. But then today's webinar is really about the 3 things that you can see on the right. So mostly it is about the research papers, right? Conferences is basically writing in your application the conferences that you have attended and the patents that you have any. But since the last 2 are very, very difficult, and you might or might not have something to write about them, I am going to tell you today all about papers. So your research papers, and they have very, very high value in the university that you're applying to. Because imagine a research that is being done, and some new research outcome is coming out of your research in that university. So the university gets benefited multifold by that research, and that is why the top universities in the world value research so much, right? So we are going to now get into research profile. So research profile is divided into 3 parts: journal papers, literature review papers, and preprints. So journal papers are papers written with new research outcomes. Literature review papers are something, it is like a consolidated summary. It is also a paper, but then it does not have any new research outcomes. So it is a consolidated paper consisting of a summary of 50 to 60 research papers written in a particular topic. Literature review papers are also very, very highly valued by the admissions committee. And the last point is the preprints. So preprints are that space that the students submit their papers to before submitting it to a journal. So since the evaluation system in the preprint is generally very lenient as compared to that in the journal, students prefer to submit their papers first to a preprint, get it reviewed by a preprint, and then submit it to a journal. Okay. And then when I say publish, it is not necessarily required to publish your paper before you submit an application. It is completely okay if your paper is in preparation or it is submitted when at the time of your application. Okay. And this of course has to be validated by the professor in your letter of recommendation. You cannot just write that your paper is in preparation or it is published. So this resume is belongs to Dr. Raj, and he has written in his resume that this particular paper is in preparation. But of course, this fact was substantiated by his letter of recommendation. So make sure that if you're writing anything under the publication section, make sure that it is also endorsed by in the letter of recommendation by your professor. So that is something that gives it credibility and makes it believable. Understood? Uh, Now we are going to delve into some research paper basics. Okay, now we know what is a research paper, what is a research profile. Now we are going to delve into the research paper basics. So before I give you an insight on how to write a research paper, I just want to condition your mind with a few things. Now, most of the students in undergrad are new to research. And some of you might also feel, it is very common to feel that I'm new to research. Will I be able to do this? Do I have what it takes to write a research paper? But then don't worry. Of course, it is not easy. But then if you follow some of the meticulous steps that I'm going to mention, your paper will be ready, right? And it's fine even if you have a manuscript that is ready at the end of your application process. It is considered a success. And also don't worry if your paper is rejected when you've submitted for publishing, right? Because it is very, very common for first timers to have their paper rejected. So don't take it personally. And some of the professors in top universities as well get their papers rejected all the time. So it's very, very common. Don't worry about it. So it is very important to have faith in yourself, to have that confidence in yourself that yes, I will be able to develop my research profile. And even if I have low GPA, this research profile is going to help me offset that low GPA. Correct? So GPA is something that you can't do anything about really. And you've already been doing whatever you can to get the best GPAs, but sometimes it's understandable that not all of us have good GPAs. So a research profile is something, it is still that hope that you have that you can offset your GPA with and still get into your dream universities, right? So don't sell yourselves short and have confidence in yourselves. Okay. Yeah. So now I'm going to tell you how to do your literature study. So before you start writing any paper, may it be a research paper, may it be a review paper, you have to study the literature. You have to study the previous papers that were written, right? So how do you do that? There are two ways to study the literature. The first way is the in-depth mode. So in this mode, you read the entire research paper. Research paper consists of typically 15 to 20 pages each. It takes about 3 to 4 hours if you do it in one sitting. And, I would recommend you to do the first 5 research papers literature study in the in-depth mode. Now, what is the bird's eye view mode? The bird's eye view mode is basically skimming through the research paper through the abstract, introduction, figures, tables, and get the gist of it, right? So I would recommend you to read the first 5 papers that you read in the in-depth mode and the rest of the 40 to 50 papers that you read in the bird's eye mode. So make a very good combination of these two modes of literature study so that you get a very well sound knowledge of the literature that you have studied. Okay. Now we at Videsh, we encourage our LTM students to maintain this particular Excel sheet that can be used later on when they are using these literature papers as a reference, right? So on the leftmost column, you can write the paper title, and on the rightmost column, you can see that there is a 5 to 7 sentence summary. So what is the summary of? This is basically the gist that you have understood from reading that research paper, right? So it is possible that you read 50 research papers and then you forget what did I read in the first paper. It happens. It is very common. It is very human. That is why we generally encourage students to maintain an Excel sheet, and this Excel sheet can be updated as and when you do the literature study, right? So you at least have a summary of everything that you've read in at a glance, right? So maintain this Excel sheet when you're doing literature study. Okay. So now I want to tell you about the tools that are used to write a research paper and the tools that are used to do literature study, right? So there might be many other tools, but we at Videsh encourage students to use these tools. The first tool is Overleaf. So this is a software that converts your document into a latex format, and it makes your document appear very, very professional and exactly like how a research paper would look. Now, on the right, you can see that this paper exactly looks like a written research paper out of some journal, right? And on the left, this is the software. In the software, you just have to edit. You just have to type in the text. You can see that this is written Journal of Fluid Mechanics. So the formatting, the fonting, everything is done on the left. You just have to put your text here, and Overleaf will convert it into a document, a beautiful document on the right. Now, we have also observed that it is also possible to write a research paper in Microsoft Word, but then writing a paper in Overleaf gives you a confidence. Look how this paper is looking, right? If you write your name as the author here, imagine the kind of confidence you will get and the motivation that you will get to continue this writing this research paper, right? So we encourage our students to use Overleaf, right? The next software that I want to tell you about is the Litmaps. So Litmaps is basically used for literature study. So what does Litmaps do? Now, this is a paper that Dr. Raj wrote in 2020. It is titled as this. This is the title. Now, what I've done is I've copied the title and pasted it here. Now, I just want you to pause for a moment and tell you that this Litmaps is used when you are stuck on which paper I should read next. So this is for literature study, right? If you are confused, if you don't know, I've read one paper and I don't know which paper I should read next. So this is a Litmaps is something that you should use, right? I've copied the title and pasted it in the search window of Litmaps, and I will just now take you through Litmaps and I will show you. Just a second. I will show you how it looks like. Yeah, so this is how the search looks like. You can see that the Litmaps has produced a tree-like structure, and Dr. Raj's paper is here. So now if I hover my cursor here on the left, you can see all the papers that Dr. Raj has cited in his paper, and all the papers on the right are the papers that have cited Dr. Raj's paper. So you will know at a glance which paper should I read next and what should I do next. So Litmaps is very, very useful. Our students use it a lot because it will give you a clear idea on which paper and which material you should read next. Right? The next is Mendeley. So Mendeley is a software which is used for documentation of your research papers. So again, Mendeley is used for literature study, and it is basically used to create a library of the research papers that you've read, right? And then again, in addition to the Excel sheet that I mentioned earlier, Mendeley can also be used to maintain a library. So I will just show you how Mendeley looks. Yeah, so this is how this tool looks like. You can sign in, you can create your account here, and you can develop a library here, right? So in addition to an Excel sheet, you will also have a tool that is keeping a track of what all you've read. Okay, so this tool also is very, very useful. We found it to be very, very useful. Okay, so now I go into I think one of the most important parts of today's session, that is identifying the topic. Now, most of you, I understand, would not know that how do I identify a particular topic for my research paper, right? How do I do that? So first, I would ask you to broadly classify your area of interest. So here I've written 5 areas of interest aerodynamics, AI, ML, economics. So whatever your field of study is, you can broadly classify your area of interest. You can write it down, and then you can identify, just a minute, and then you can narrow it down to 2 or 3 specific topics of your area of interest. Now in AI and ML, the specifics can be scientific machine learning. So in your particular area of broad interest, you can just classify, you can narrow it down to 2 or 3 specific topics of your area of interest. And then you can pick several papers from Google Scholar that are related to your area of interest. I will show you how Google Scholar looks like. So this is Google Scholar website, and if you type scientific machine learning or whatever your particular area of interest is, it gives you all the papers, all the articles that are written in that particular field, right? So this is how you can also decide which paper to read next and what all literature study I should be doing. Correct. Now, how do I figure out if whatever paper I want to read is the correct paper for me? So now we have cited a couple of things that you should follow before you are opening a particular paper and starting to read it. So the first thing is the date. So a date of publishing is very, very important. Don't read very old papers. So generally the papers before 2016 are considered old, and we won't recommend you reading them. The papers after 2016 are considered modern. And yes, you can go ahead and read them, but also look at the number of citations. So also look at how many times it is cited. So if the citations are more than 100, it is generally a very, very good paper and you can go ahead and read it. And if it is less than that, we don't recommend you to do that. But then if it is very, very particular to your area of research, you can go ahead and read it. But these are some thumb rules that we swear by. If you have to, read a paper and if you can't figure out which one and how should I decide, right? And then of course I would ask you to review the first 25 papers. So 5 papers we are going to study in the in-depth mode, and the rest of the papers we are going to study in the bird's eye mode. So like I said, how to select papers, I told you, you can use Google Scholar, you can use lit maps. You have to look at the number of citations, and you have to look at the date of publishing. So that is how you can select which papers to read from such vast literature that is available, right? And then now if you don't know what a citation is, a citation is a paper gets a citation if it is mentioned by some other paper, and so that is how it gets citation. So that is what a citation is called as, right? So now I would go ahead and classify this identifying your topic into 3 sub topics. First is broad domain, like I mentioned. The second is narrowing it down to 2 or 3 areas of your interest. And then the third point, the most important point, is your specific story. So this is the third point, is something that you will be making a contribution in your research paper in, and this will be a novelty in your research paper. So make sure that your specific story is very, very relevant, it is novel, and make sure that it derives from the first 2 topics, right? So like I said, yes, remember the 3 areas while identifying the topic of your research paper: your domain, your area of interest, and your specific story. Okay. So now we move on to the paper outline. So now, till now, what we have done, we know now what is a research profile. We now know how to do literature study. We have studied all the material. Now we are actually beginning to proceed to write the research paper, right? So, just a minute. Yeah. So a paper outline consists of 12 parts, right from title to acknowledgements. I am going to take you through the details of each part. And now we are into the writing of the research paper section. Okay. So why is a paper outline important? So it is basically a skeletal component, and these 12 parts, it's fine not to mention these 12 parts when you're forming that skeleton. First 5 or 6 parts are more than enough. I'll let you know that later. But then it is important to remember that when you submit a paper for publishing, the paper has to have these 12 sections. Okay. Then the template you should follow. So we encourage, there's this word template that you can follow, and you can also follow an overleaf template, right? So this is the word template that you can follow when you're writing your research paper. You're also free to use the overleaf format, it is up to you. But then there are these two ways of using a particular template, and we encourage you to use one of these templates when you're starting to write a research paper. Okay, the first and the second part, the title and the abstract, are very, very important, and they form the basis of your paper outline. So what is a title? A title is something that gives you a broad understanding into what your research paper is about. Okay, it is basically a 12 to 13 word line which is going to give the reviewer a complete idea into what your research paper is. Now, if you are writing a review paper, I just want to show you that if you're writing a review paper, it is completely fine to mention a review paper in your title. Not writing a research paper, see, this is one of the most famous review papers, and they have clearly mentioned it in the title that this is a literature review paper, right? It is very clear and crisp, and there's no need to not mention it. So I would encourage you to mention it in your title if you're writing a review paper. If not, if you're writing a research paper, now this is Dr. Rajat's research paper, and look at the title. So the title clearly gives you an insight into the expert, for the experts of that field, that what this paper is going to be about. The next thing is the author. So the title and the author go hand in hand, and I would encourage you to start writing your research paper with your name as the author in overleaf. See the kind of confidence it gives you, see the way it looks, and it gives you this kind of motivation to continue writing your paper, right? So this is where you have to write the author name. Okay, the next part of your research paper is going to be the abstract. So now the abstract is a summary. It is a 150 to 200 page word summary that we have divided into 4 parts for ease of understanding. So these 4 parts, if you include in your abstract, are going to be extremely, extremely impactful on the admissions committee. And we have divided it into the first part, that is the large scale problem. So you have to define a large scale problem. For example, dust accumulation on solar panels is a major challenge. So that is a large scale problem. And then you go into of that challenge. So consumption of water for cleaning, especially in deserts, poses a substantial sustainability challenge. So this is a specific challenge that is being faced. Now, the third point is very, very important, and it defines the specific metrics and the details of your approach, right? So it is fine if your abstract consists maximum of the third point, but then it has to consider of all the points, right? And the next, the fourth and the last point is the wider implications that your abstract has, that your research paper has as a whole, right? So we have shortly, we call it as the hourglass approach. So now this is for ease of remembering. So when you write your abstract, you can divide it into 4 parts, and you can visualize it as an hourglass. I'll explain you what that is. Now, the first and the last part of this hourglass is applicable to a much wider audience. Okay, so a much wider audience can understand what is going on in your research paper. And the hourglass at the second and third point is only specific to the experts of that particular field. So the hourglass clearly defines how your abstract should be built, and exactly, if you go by this approach, you will have a beautiful abstract written. Also, it is a short summary, so don't leave it at the end, because an abstract is going to decide whether the admissions committee or the reviewer is going to read your paper or not. Okay, then we move on to the introduction section. So the introduction section is, I would say, the most important point in your research paper, right? So why is it so important, and why does it play such a pivotal role? An introduction section is 1,000 to 1,500 word essay of your research paper. So what is it? It tells the reader the significance of your research paper. So now here I want you to pause and just remember that including novelty in your introduction is very, very important. And a paper reviewer might or might not read your research paper based on the novelty factor. So right, so important factor here is to maintain the novelty and what value addition you are doing in this research paper. So we have again broken down this introduction into 5 parts. Make sure to include all these parts in your introduction section. Okay. First part is what is the problem? So identification of the problem. The second part is how are people trying to solve this problem? The third part is what are current issues with the current approaches. And the fourth and the fifth point, what do you propose and large scale implications? Okay. So keep in mind these 5 points when you're writing an introduction. Okay. And we also encourage you to write a bullet point introduction first before writing an essay. So you can expand that later, of course. And so first of all, when you're getting started with this section, please write a bullet pointed introduction along with the references that you're using. So references are the research literature study that you're doing. And whenever, if you're writing what is the problem, so if you're identifying some problem and if you want to mention a reference, just mention that in the bullet section of the introduction. We can expand that later on. Okay. The next part in the paper outline is the figures. So these are the diagrams and the figures that you are inserting in your research paper to make it more impactful. Okay, so now what does this figure show? This figure shows that all the figures in your research paper should be aligned and should be connected to one another, right? So it is as if your figures are telling a story. And if any reviewer is, see, they don't have time to go through your entire 15-page paper, right? They're going to skim through the abstract, introduction, figures, tables, and then they're going to decide if this paper is good enough or no. Okay, so figures are, they give you a visual insight into your research paper, and I would encourage you to spend a lot of time into developing or creating good figures. Okay, and it is like a story that you're telling through visuals. So like I said, yes, figures are the backbone of your papers. It is very, very important to mention, to keep in mind all the points that I'm going to tell you ahead. Now, these are the points that you should remember when you are inserting or creating a figure, right? So a high resolution figure is very, very important. If somebody is trying to zoom in your figure and if it gets blurred, it casts a negative impact on the reviewer and they are likely to reject it, right? Your x-axis, y-axis, and legend should be visible. Your font size, font color, font family should be very, very consistent. You can do this in overleaf. You can write you can insert figures through overleaf as well. And then it is very important to have a figure name, a figure number, and a figure description, right? So you can use these tools for creating figures. You can use Canva, AI, or Microsoft PowerPoint, but we at Videsh encourage students to use Adobe Illustrator or Canva. So these are the two tools that ensure that your image is very, very clear, it is high resolution, and it does not blur when zoomed. Right, this is an example figure that I just want to emphasize on. So this figure is an ideal figure, and look at how it has a label, a number, a title, a sub figure number, and a figure description. So a good figure should have, in addition to the 6 points that I mentioned before, it should have these 4 points as well. And this is going to give you a clear insight into how the rest of your paper is going to be. So make sure you insert clear, crisp figures in your research paper. Yes, like I said, inserting figure leaf is also possible. We will share the video link of that. The next part is the tables. So next part in the paper outline is the tables. If there is any text that can be written in table form, it is well and good. Actually, it is the best thing that can happen to your paper, right? If you are able to avoid text for some reason, and if you're able to convert it into a table, it is very, very, it gives a good effect, and it makes the reviewer very easy to read all the facts, right? You can see that the facts in this table mentioned are so clearly visible that it is giving me motivation to read the next, right? It is not boring, it is very clear, it is crisp. And again, like I said, for the tables, tables should have a description, correct font, table number, table description, everything. So a table also works just like the figures. If you are inserting a table in your paper, make sure that it is proper and it is very, very well formatted. Yes, you can do this in overleaf as well. We will share the video for that as well. Then the next part is adding references. Now, while we were in the introduction section, I mentioned that you can add references when you're bullet pointing your resume, your introduction, right? So you can do that when you're bullet pointing your introduction. At the same time, you can keep adding your references, right? So, this is just an example of how you are supposed to write your mention your references, right? So different journals have different references style. References are basically the literature that you are referring to in your paper, and it basically gives a clear insight into what paper you're referring to. It is a reference, right? So there are different styles of adding references, and the superscript, square bracket, everything depends on the type of journal that you are submitting your paper in. So it is important that once you identify the journal that you are going to submit your paper in, to change the formatting of the references mentioned in the same way, right? And then again, there is no universal style. You can use the MS Word Mendeley plugin, or in Overleaf you can use that to add your particular references, right? And then something about bullet pointed paper outline. So what is a bullet pointed paper outline? Like I said, the paper outline originally consists of 12 parts, right? But it is fine if you have these 5 parts covered. Now these parts are called as the bullet pointed paper outline. They consist of the title, the abstract, introduction with references, the figures, and the tables. So this will form the first version of your research paper, and you can clearly develop the rest of your research paper using these as your bullet pointed skeleton. So this is basically a skeleton of your research paper, and once you have this in place, it is very, very good for you to write. It will help you to get motivated and write the rest of your research paper. Okay, and then acknowledgements. Last but not the least, this is a short, simple section. Now, when you're doing your literature study, you will know that how you're supposed to write acknowledgements. I've just given a few examples here. So this is a simple, short section and can be finished very early. So that's fine. And then part 2 is is actually, now we are coming at the formation of a research paper. We are getting all the things that we've learned now together, right? Now the introduction, main body, discussions, and conclusions, we are just going to merge all of them. Okay, now like I said, you have a bullet pointed introduction. You have to now convert it to a full version. So it has to be converted into a full-blown essay of 1,000 to 1,500 words, the final version that you're going to submit in your research paper. So you have to just expand the bullet points into an essay-like version. Okay, and then again, don't use Chat GPT or any other writing tools for crafting the paragraphs, because it is going to give a very, very negative impact. The outcome is not good. It doesn't create a very, very good impact, and generally the reviewers are trained to catch things of such sort. So this will immediately result into rejection. So we at Videsh, we don't recommend doing that at all. And try to just avoid a Chat GPT when you're writing your research paper, any part of your research paper. Clear? Now we move to the conclusions. So conclusion is the actual takeaway that you are giving, that you're getting from the paper. So again, like the abstract, it is a 200 to 300 words small paragraph, and then you have to quickly summarize the paper, and you have to mention the key takeaways. So again, conclusion is also very, very important, and you can when you're expanding all the paper outline, you can start writing about the conclusion section of the paper. Okay, now we know what is a research profile. We have done literature study. We have written the research paper. Now we are almost at the end of finishing writing a research paper now. And then now we are going towards writing the entire manuscript. So you have to just expand all the points that I mentioned, so that you will form a complete 15 to 20 pages research paper. Now, what are supplementary materials? Supplementary materials are those materials that you're not able to add in your paper, but still you would like to reference them because they were very, very useful to you. Now, this is Dr. Sridhar's paper, and his references, his supplementary material includes figures 1 to 6, legends for movies S to 7, and movies S to. So this is something that he wants to add as a supplementary material. He has not mentioned everything in his paper. He's just added this as a supplementary material, right? You can do that. If you don't want to add this as reference, you can write it at the end as the supplementary material. So these are just going to supplement your paper. Okay, now we've written the entire manuscript of the paper, and I'm going to now give you some do's and don'ts while writing the paper. Okay, so these are some of the mistakes that students make while writing a research paper, and I just want to make you aware of these mistakes so that inadvertently students are making this mistake, right? So first is the writing style. So active and passive voice, differentiating between active and passive voice is very important when you are writing your research paper, right? So like for example, a passive voice will sound something like the imaging was performed using SEM. Active voice will sound something like we performed the imaging using SEM. The difference between the two is that the active voice will make you feel much closer, and it will make you feel as if you are doing the particular experiment or you are actually doing something, right? The passive voice will generally give a feeling that you're reporting something from far. You're not doing it, you're not a part of it. Somebody else is doing it for you and you're not a part of it. So please use active writing style instead of passive writing style, right? Keep this in mind. The next is the past and present tense. So I understand that this must seem very, very minor and very trivial for you, but then very important when a reviewer is reading your research paper. Okay, so generally use this as a thumb rule. Use present tense for analysis and conclusions, and use past tense for experiments conducted, right? So use this as a thumb rule when you are writing your research papers. Differentiating between past and present tense is very, very important. Okay, then again, grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes are a complete no-no in today's age, where tools like Grammarly are easily available for you. You can just install a plugin and then you can easily know if you've made any grammar mistakes. Now, the three things that I mentioned, how you can avoid that, right? Once you've written a manuscript of your paper, I suggest taking a printout of that, take a highlighter in your hand, sit down and do a complete in-depth study of your own paper, right? Then you will actually know if you've used the wrong tense. You will also know that if you've used passive voice instead of active voice. You will also know if you've made any grammar mistakes or if you've made any spelling mistakes. This is the best old school way to get to know your own mistakes. Okay, review it yourself. Don't first get it reviewed from somebody else. You sit down with a highlighter and try to be your own critic and try to find mistakes if you can find them, right? Now we've written the paper, we have not made any mistakes, everything is fine. Now we have to identify the journal for submission, right? Now we are at the process where our paper is completed. Now we have to submit it to a journal. But which journal will you submit it to, right? How will you select a journal in which you have to submit your paper, right? So you have to select a journal based on similar journals in which papers of your interest have been submitted to, right? So it is generally very impossible that you have written something that is totally out of this world and nobody has ever tried to publish anything of that sort, right? It is completely, it is not possible, it is impossible. So you will always find research papers in your area of interest on Google Scholar. You will also find the journals that they were submitted to. So this is how you select journals. Again, you also have to consider impact factor of a journal. What is an impact factor? An impact factor is the number of citations that that particular journal has. For undergrad applications, I would suggest an impact factor of 1 to 3 is a very, very moderate, I would say a little bit ambitious also. And then you can select a journal with such an impact factor, right? Between 1 to 3. Above 3 it is very high, and it is generally unlikely to get your paper published in those journals which have impact factor more than 3. Okay. And then again, make a Google sheet about the journals, about their impact factors, about everything that about all the journals that you can submit into, right? So make a complete Google sheet of that, and then you can select. So at Videsh we're doing this, we are doing the same thing. We are making a Google sheet, and we are writing all the journals that the students can submit their papers to, and then depending on the impact factor, we are selecting the journal. Also, one more important point that you have to consider when submitting is the cost of submitting. So submitting to any journal is not free. Whether your paper gets accepted or rejected, that is a completely different story. But submission itself costs money, right from, it can say, I can about $1,000 to $12,000. It can range anything in between, right? So this is the cost of submission. It does not guarantee that your paper is going to be published, but then these two factors you have to consider when you're selecting a particular journal. First is the impact factor, and the second is the cost of publishing. Okay. So this is how you select your journal. Now we have selected our journal, we have submitted our paper to that journal. What happens after submission? What is the back end process that goes on when you submit your paper? Okay. So what happens is these four things happen. First, your paper goes to an editorial review. So here you're supposed to write a cover letter. Another take this as another chance to glorify yourself, to glorify your paper. In the cover letter, you can boost your paper a lot. You can mention everything in the cover paper that you wanted to mention. You can upsell yourself really in this cover letter. This takes about a week or so, and then you are notified if you go into the next stage of peer review. This peer review again takes about 4 to 8 weeks. It may take more if somebody is not available. Again, then the next step is the revision. So if your paper requires any revision, it is sent to you for revision. Again, this may take about 1 to 2 months. And the final thing is the publication. This again takes about a month or so. So the entire process of publication takes around 3 to 4 months. Okay. And you are notified at the end of every stage if you've crossed that particular stage, right? So if you've been rejected at stage 1, 2, or 3, you get notifications. Okay. So I want to emphasize here at this point that the publishing itself takes 2 to 3 months, and your paper preparation, if done very, very seriously with proper planning, it takes about 3 to 4 months. Now we are in March, and you have your deadlines in December. So we have a good 8 months to prepare your research profile. And we have a lot of time on our hands, I would say, to identify a particular topic, play about a good abstract, write a good introduction. So, we have time to meticulously write all of these 12 points that I have mentioned. So basically increase your chances of publication. Okay. Again, one more thing I would want to reiterate at this point. When you're writing a publication section in your resume of your application, it is important that it is endorsed by your professor in their letter of recommendation. If it is not, it is not going to be considered by admissions committee. It should have credibility, and that credibility comes from letter of recommendation. So keep that in mind when you're getting your letters of recommendation. Okay. And then the next point is how to deal with paper rejection. So yeah, like I said at the start of this webinar, that even professors at MIT and the top universities get their papers rejected. So it is a unanimous decision of the panel sitting there, and there's no need to take it personally. Generally, first timers always get their papers rejected, but if submitted it to a journal itself is a big thing. It is a big achievement. So be proud of yourself and don't worry about paper rejection. Generally, first timers have their papers rejected, and if your paper is accepted for the first time, among researchers, it is an inside joke that if your paper gets accepted at the first time, it is not a good sign. So you're not a good researcher. So don't take it personally. Don't worry. Be proud of yourself that you've written an entire manuscript. You've written an entire research paper on your own, and that is something to be really, really proud of. right? So yes, now we are at the end of writing research papers, and now I'm going to give you a little bit on how we at Videsh are going to help you with this process, right? So we have this long-term mentorship program at Videsh, and we are going to help you with building your research profile, storytelling, and planning your timeline. And again, I would like to emphasize at this point that the first point in this LTM, that is research profile, is going to be directly handled by our co-founders. Since a research profile is a very, very sensitive topic, the students require meticulous attention and intricate details. And since our founders have gone through the process, they are going to be directly involved with you when you are involved with us to build your research profile. So you're not going to be interacting with anybody else during the LTM phase one. You're going to be interacting with the founders themselves, right? So this is why, because like I said, it is a meticulous process. It requires planning, and it is actually, something that is customized. It is not a general rule of thumb to give a particular Excel sheet to everybody, and it doesn't work like that. Every student has their or his or her own area of interest. They have their own achievements, and they have their own things that they would like to write their research papers on, right? Everybody has a different mindset. So that is why we've kept this phase one exclusively with our founders. Yes, this, like I said, takes about 3 to 4 months. We are in March, so if we start in March itself, we will be finishing building research profile in at the end of, I would say, June or July. Okay, so this is the first part of the LTM. The next part is perfecting the application. So all the documentation like statement of purpose, LOR, your resume, and then portfolio, developing your portfolio, helping you with these exams like GRE, TOEFL, IELTS, and then of course, very, very important, university shortlisting. So this is phase two, and we generally do this after we are done with phase one or almost done with phase one, right? This is a Videsh profile assessment research tool that we are giving to our LTM students when they have enrolled with us. So this is for us to understand how proficient you are in your research, how well versed you are, if you any background around to research, and you have to fill this as in detail as possible. So you will get this Google form if and when you enroll with us, and you have to fill this in as many detail as possible. Okay. So these are now some of our something that we're really, really proud of, some testimonials, and something that I would really like to show to you, because yes, we have helped students get research internships. We've helped them write 54 plus review papers. They've submitted about 12 plus research papers. We've helped students with SOPs, resumes, LORs. We have developed their portfolio websites. We have also very, very strong community on our newsletter. So newsletters also students are finding very, very useful. And we also have a Discord community. So if you have enrolled with us, you immediately get an access to Discord community, which is a great way of interaction between your peers, right? So you get to interact with your so your people of interest, and it is a great platform for interacting. Okay. Yes, some sample papers. Now these papers, you won't believe it, they were written by students who have absolutely no experience in research, right? These papers look so professional, so beautiful, that it is impossible, and we are extremely proud of that. We are extremely proud of our students, of the hard work they've put in. So that is why I said at the start of this webinar to have a little bit more faith in yourself, that a student with no background in research can write such beautiful research papers, right? Yes, some testimonials from our students who have got accepted into very, very good universities. They keep sending us lots of messages that they are incredibly happy, and then it was their dream come true, and it fills our heart with pride. We are so very proud of them. Yeah, this is again some of the testimonials. I also want to show you the Videsh website on which we have video testimonials also. So you can go to our website flyvidesh.online, and you can hear some of these video testimonials. And these are actually students at different universities who have made their dream come true, and we are also very, very proud of our students. Yeah, and then this is just a small list of students that we've helped our students get into. So again, extremely proud. Again, some testimonials from our students. Yeah, so we are going to basically help you with the following. We are going to help you identify good and easy problem statements if you're new to research. We are going to teach you how to write research papers. Now, what I showed you right now was a very generic version. It was very detailed, I know, but it was a very generic version. Each student will get a customized version of their, depending on their own area of interest, right? And then we will also help you to set a very realistic timeline on how to and when to publish the next paper, your paper in the next few months. So we have this Excel sheet that we have, and in which we have mentioned everything in detail, and it gives you a week by week planning on how you're supposed to go about which topic in your research paper. We are going to be helping you with that, because that will give you a very realistic timeline of what I'm supposed to do in next week, what I'm supposed to do this week. So you're not just fumbled up and you don't know what to do. It's not overwhelming at all. So we help you with that. And then also we help you figure out how to submit to journals and conferences, right? So we also help you with the last part of the webinar that I showed you. We help you to identify journals, we help you to figure out everything, right, along the way. Okay. So what we realistically expect is, once you have your research profile, your resume will look from something on the left to something on the right. And the resume on the right, trust me, is very impactful. And I assure you, it will make you stand out from the rest of your peers. So now that you have to compete with a lot of people, right? You have to compete with a lot of candidates from around the world, and how to make sure that students, you are basically getting into top universities like Yale, Princeton, and such universities are accepting your applications, right? It is a very prestigious moment, and this is something that will guarantee that. So now is a good time to start. Now is a good time to start building your research profile so that your resume looks like something on the right. Yeah. So this is just a glimpse of life at MIT. These photos are of Dr. Sridath. I just want to, inspire you and motivate you of how life is once you enter your dream universities. Like, so there are a lot of people from different cultural groups, different diverse background, and the amount of learning, the amount of interaction you have is extremely valuable. And we also get, we are in contact with our students also who have gone to their universities, and they are so very happy, right? So this is just a glimpse of something to keep you motivated. Yes, last but not the least, if you are interested in our LTM program, you send an email to hello@flyvidesh.com. And remember, don't just send one-liners that, hey, I'm interested in this program. Could you give me more details? No, you have to mention your name, details of your work, when you are planning to apply for grad school, and why you are interested in LTM. So the more details you give, the quicker we will get back to you, right? So it is important that we are getting hundreds of one liners every day and we are not responding to that, right? Because in that one liner we are not getting to know anything about you, right? So mention these 4 points in as much detail as you can, and also attach your latest resume, right? So it gives us an insight on how your profile is and what we can do to develop it, and also it will help us to craft the response accordingly. Okay. So we are at the end of our webinar now, and I want to, we also have our co-founders Dr. Raj and Dr. Rajat with us, who have been taking your questions in chat as well. And if the time permits, I think we can take a couple of questions. Dr. Raj and Dr. Rajat can take a couple of questions now, because if there is something on the chat. So over to you, Dr. Raj and Rajat. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Since we are almost done, maybe I'll have some concluding remarks and take one or two questions. So firstly, I would like to say that this is the right time for the phase one of the LTM. And what we have seen is that the results of last year have started to come in, and every week we are receiving a lot of messages from candidates that they are getting accepted in this university, that university, etc. And this year, one thing I have seen is that I have never interacted with someone who has gotten admit from Princeton. Even at IIT Madras, no one in our batch got admit from Princeton. But there were two people from our cohort last year who got admits from Princeton. And that was really special because that is a university who uh, rarely accepts a lot of candidates from India. The acceptance rate is very, very low. And we are seeing a lot of good admits from different universities, especially from for people whose CGPA was not very high and they had approached us last year. They were very concerned that, okay, my CGPA is not very high. Will I get admits into any universities? But now we have shown that even if your CGPA is not high, if you have not graduated from some of the well-known universities, you can still make a mark in your profile by building a very, very strong research profile. And that is why we dedicated a complete webinar for this. And I would like to thank Radhika for delivering an excellent session where she covered a lot of details in the short amount of time that we had. But if you paid attention, whatever we covered in this webinar is completely sufficient for you to get started to build your research profile. And having said that, if anyone is interested, you can always email us at hello@flyvidesh.com. Just one last question. Someone had asked about industry professional plan and what is the right approach for industrial people. So anyone who is looking to apply abroad for abroad studies, building your research profile is the key element. And if you are interested in a field which is different, so for example, if you are interested in AI ML, then I would say scientific machine learning or generative AI industry professional bootcamp is right for you. But if you do not have any aspirations in AI ML specifically, and you just want to build your research profile in any domain, then the phase one of LTM is completely suited for you because that is not specific to AI. It includes any domain because the approach that we have created is not restricted to any specific domain as such. Um, I think we are almost done. It's 8 o'clock, and we have answered all the questions in the chat as we have gone along. Yes, so maybe we can wrap up the session. A lot of you, I think, are messaging on chat, but yes. So thank you, Radhika and Raj, and everyone. Thanks for being a part of this session. And hopefully, after this, you have a very laser focused approach. We usually see that students in college they get distracted by a lot of activities. But if you want to get into the top universities, now there is no doubt in our mind that research is one of the key elements, and you have to absolutely focus on this. And the main thing which you wanted to get across is that research is not something which is only meant for highly intellectual people. It is meant for anyone who is willing to put in the effort. Uh, okay, everyone. Thank you so much for attending the webinar and all the best for your application processes. People are asking about cost, etc. You can email us at hello@flyvidesh.com and we'll respond to you within a day with all the details.
Thank you so much, everyone. All the best. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. The best. Bye. Bye.